Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're taking an Air Jordan 1 and turning it into a steampunk factory. Kind of. The first step is taking the shoe apart. And how we'll achieve this is by taking out the main thread of the midsole that holds the shoe together before drowning it in acetone. Drowning it! The next step is solving the problem I wasn't expecting. Usually like the Air Force Ones that I deconstruct, I was expecting the shoe to have a bottom after dethreading it. But alas, it's bottomless. But that's no problem, we're going to go ahead and give it a bottom. By tracing the insole onto a thin foam board, I'll cheat my way into the perfect size and shape.
Nice.
With one more hack in the chamber, hot glue comes to the rescue. And this is the tiny fog machine that I'll be adding for a little bit more flair into this design. And by trying to clean up the cut off camera, you can slice your finger insanely bad, adding the blood, sweat, and tears into this project that every great piece needs. And then this is where we get a little bit more resourceful. By taking one man's trash and turning it to another man's treasure. This is a prescription bottle we'll be turning into a furnace for the smoke machine to be housed. And one trip to the dollar store, this is what we got. But we'll push them to the side for later. We'll make some random pipe details from straws wrapped in tape with random rectangles to mimic metal patches. Now to make this pipe, I took two bendy straws, cut them, taped them together, and by adding this decorative wire, it'll make it A, keep its shape, and B, be a lot stronger. And these are one of the reasons for this project.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
So after adding the foam board to the bottom of the shoe, it doesn't look as clean as it should be, so I'll be adding some tumbled leather along the bottom to help clean this up. I don't know if it's Tuesday where you're at, but now we're back to collecting tread. It makes your sanding extremely well in order for it to really adhere to the surface. And after a few strategically cut pieces and placements, we have our swoosh. And just so I don't waste your time showing you every little faux rivet that we added, I will be attempting a transition that didn't really work out. Anyway, time to add the smaller ones with the UV resin. And this UV resin is exactly what it sounds like. Resin that hardens under a black light. By using the UV resin as opposed to super glue, I can place them and move them around to my liking. And here's where we're at so far. A few rivets added. Time to dive into one of these many trunk drawers. Later on in this project, I'll be using the brown leather, it's chained with the laces, and this old watch. And one of many reasons that I chose an Air Jordan 1 over an Air Force 1 is this iconic Wings logo that would look super dope in a steampunk style. Also, I made the Wings logo out of a Jordan lace box, so it's poetic if you ask me. And as you guys can see, every time I'm going to glue two pieces of plastic together, there's going to be copious amounts of sanding. And this is just a test fit to see how the smoke mechanism is going to travel through the shoe. This is sand-free, an adhesion promoter, to make sure that we get full coverage and it doesn't chip off. And after putting on the sand-free and some gray base coat, this is where we're at. Now it's time to add a hole in the back of the shoe for the smoke to dispense out of. By piercing a small hole into the shoe and then enlarging it with the drill, we should have our desired size. Now it's time for black paint. One of these paints is a 1-to-1 with water so that it adheres into the sock liner and is still soft to the touch, and the other is regular, too thin and black paint from Angelus. Heat setting it with the heat gun in between each coat is really going to give us that desired texture. Now it's time to take this white shoe and add a black primer. It's also time to add a black paint primer to the little pipes that are going underneath the shoe as well. And by using this pure protein bottle that I got from the recycling bin, I'll be able to add my pipes in it and add the black primer. And here we are after everything has been primed in a deep black. This half of a watch is from the junk box earlier, but in order to complete the look we're going for, we're going to have to add a second strap. Taking the brown leather from earlier, piercing some holes with the Dremel, and by tracing the original half of the watch, we should be able to find a rough estimate to the size we're looking for. Color a few of these wires for more detail underneath. Now we're ready to assemble for the most part. By taking some hot glue and putting everything into place, we should have a good foundation for the rest of this build. I like to add the glue and then press it down for a little bit for better adhesion. Now we're going to be adding the insole to the bottom of the shoe for a more clean base. We cut the perfect hole size earlier, so this should be an easy process. And now we're just adding some more glue adding our prescription bottle into place, making sure there's no leaks, because that's where the smoke's going to be coming out of. Onto the front bottle. Blowing that as well, twisting it in, and when we add it to the base, it should be pretty level. Now it's time to add the funnel attached to the straw, so the smoke can travel from the bottom of the furnace out to the top. Adding these black zip ties to the painted acrylic rod that I made earlier really gives it extra detail. Now we're just gluing all the pipes in place. And now just going to go ahead and add that Steampunk wings logo. And now we're going to be giving the shoe a once over in brown before giving it a highlight with a bunch of gold. We're going for a bronze brassy look, so the gold highlighting the brown should really give us that desired effect. Now it's time for one of many dry brushes. Dry brushing with the teal, really only hitting the corners and the harsh edges to give it that patina look. And I find you really don't want to skimp on the dry brushing, gives it a lot more character in the end. And we're going to go pretty liberal with this dry brushing, hitting the uppers and the pipes on the bottom. Time to add the gear onto the wings logo. And now the individual colored wires are going to get placed. Going back over the rhinestone rivets with a gold, since they were covered up in the initial painting process. And this is the quote-unquote smoke machine that'll be housed in the furnace on the very bottom of the shoe, traveling through the funnel and the straw.
I don't know how it's gonna work. I don't know how it's gonna go. I don't know.
And now we're adding the watch straps to the shoe with super glue, holding it down for about 10 to 15 seconds. I've had these brass-looking chains that'll make perfect for laces for a couple years now, and I'm glad we're able to implement them. Adding the key and the lock to incorporate more different types of metal into the shoe, while also fitting the vibe pretty well. These are a couple miniatures I got off Amazon, but as you can see, the paint job is pretty terrible. So we're going to have to go back in and fix it up. Paint markers should be enough coverage on this shoe, while also being tiny enough to add a good amount of detail. They all had jumpsuits on, so I went in, gave a few khakis, changed the color of a few hats, gave them some safety vests, and now I think they stand out a little bit better. And here's the result of the miniatures after I painted them. I think they look pretty good if I say so myself. Now it's time to super glue them into place. We'll start with the ladder, followed up by the dude climbing the ladder, the dude on the top doing some very non-OSHA approved welding, the boss chewing out these two employees who are clearly taking too long of lunch breaks. And now it's time for the final results. But before we show you that, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, comment your favorite part. Thanks for watching.